about, hot topic education and answer your questions about what it's like to be a teacher or different things that are happening in the education world, I guess. So tonight I have a really great guest, and I'm going to explain who that is in just a moment. But I will say now that if you are watching this on YouTube or on YouNow, you can go ahead and leave questions in the comment section, and we will try and get to every single one of those that we can. For some reason, your comment gets missed or your question gets missed, please enter it in the questions or in the comment section on YouTube. The show is done, and I will promise you I will get back to you on that because it's important to me, and that's why we do this. Not just so I can sit here and talk and watch myself, because that would be weird. It's more about you and you growing in some sense. And I think that you should all get professional development credits for this also, because I'm sure that everyone going back to school and being in those professional development meetings is thinking, man, this is worth my time. Have on who is closer to me geographically than maybe anyone so far. So Amy runs an Instagram account called The Unique Classroom, and she has a very lovely looking classroom. And we're going to talk tonight classroom community, and I'm really excited to do that because I think we run some parallels here, and I think I'm insight on a number of things and see maybe what I could learn tonight also. So I'm going to go ahead and guest her in now. Waiting. Let's see. It says inviting. I see all my homies popping up on the side there. Let's see. This worked flawlessly yesterday, so it should work well now. And I apologize for all the glitchiness last week. You just can never tell. You just never know what you're going to get here on live streaming, even though it's 2017. Oh, I didn't get a response, so I'm going to try and do that again. Let's see. Let's try this one more time.
Oh, dang it, you now.
Amy, where'd you go? Now it's not giving me the option to do so. So as I'm trying to navigate this situation, someone had left in the comment section that I should do like I should be connected with these folks ahead of time and then jump in, and that's not an option on YouNow, so that's why I don't do that. I know Google Hangouts you can do that and stuff, and that's awesome. But let's see. It says inviting guest. Maybe it's working. Hopefully it's working. Super Secret's hoping that's working. Could it be? Please. Hopefully. My sad eyes. So I'm just going to keep talking while I'm waiting for this. I started a new video this week that's going to come out maybe tomorrow. If I can finish it tonight, I have a bunch of new stuff in it doing. I'm doing a video on how to make floating bookshelves and flying books. There are like two things in my classroom tour on YouTube that I get the most questions about. So I thought I would try and make a video, and really funny because I have to do voiceovers, and I never did a voiceover before, and it's weird. So I don't know why this isn't working, Amy.
Leave and then come back in.
Amy, if you can hear me, why don't you log out and then log back in, or close the page and then come back in, and we'll do it like that. Sometimes it's just I'm trying again in case you can't hear me, and we'll see.
Someone asked where you went to. Where did you go to college?
Where did I go to college? I went to Rowan University. Well, first, full transparency, I was a community college graduate first, and I think community college gets dogged a lot, but I think it is an awesome resource, and it saved me a lot of money and gave me room to like navigate and try things out before like I settled down on a major. So I went to
full transparent.
Oh, there we go. So I went to Camden College here in New Jersey, and then I state school here in New Jersey, just because a really successful education program. Or so. I got my undergrad in English, which I realized was completely worthless when I graduated. Because for anything that I wanted to do, I didn't want to be an editor or a publisher or a writer. So that didn't for me. So then I went back to school for education. I got my post-baccalaureate degree in secondary education. So I can teach anything from 6th, and I decided to 9th grade was my, it's kind of like, I don't know, what I was drawn to. Part of me would really like to teach year kids, though, as well. I'm sorry this happens often. Now, it might not be my option for much longer if this continues, but I don't know what else I would use. So I'm inviting her in, and we'll see how this works. Amy, make sure you're hitting, like, letting it know that you want to accept the invitation. So you should be on your screen that says some effect of, like, do you want a guest into this, or you're being asked to be a guest, and let it know yes, you do. And I'll just keep hitting that try again. So I appreciate everyone being here. Jenny J, you're here every week, and I am thankful. The Queen de la Classroom is all appreciate you being here also. I see Imir.
She's not seeing it.
She's not seeing the live feed? Is she on the real site? Is she on? Oh, yeah.
But
That's
she's
weird.
not seeing the ability to accept.
Huh. Let's see. I just sent it again. Is it being blocked by her computer? Is this right now?
Yeah.
So I'm also going to say that I'm also going to say that one of my new favorite things is watching, read comment section after the show. So those comments typically, as soon as I exit out, like those comments go away forever and no one ever sees them. But seeing all of that happens in there, in between, like between viewers, is really fun. Let's see, she's still not showing up.
Is she still in the queue?
She's not in the queue anymore. My hope is that she back so that she could get back in. Sorry, gang. Get a snack, and I'll get this worked out in a moment. And if not, I'll just figure it out from there.
We'll go on with the show.
Yeah, maybe we'll just pick random people to be on the show.
You can't get one guest, then how are you going to get anybody else?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. It's okay. Tell her to just chill. It's cool. So let me ask this. I'm just going to go with this as my wife is like texting over here, and she and Amy will figure this out. What's going on in your first week back? What are you excited about? What is hard? What has happened that has been like a pleasant surprise, or that you are finding concern with? And we can kind of go like that way for a moment while I'm waiting for my guest to jump in. Now I have to read my own questions too, because my wife's doing that. You know how that goes. Yes, Chip Jamerson. I am doing the floating bookshelf video, and it's gonna be fun. I'm in for it. She said she can't hear us.
Yeah, I told her to restart her computer.
Uh,
You don't think it's on your end, do you? I don't think so because everyone can hear you.
Indie Kitty said, "I am glad that I got my lit degree. It was being in research that gave me good skills." Yeah, I think a lot of good came out of me going to school for English, but the degree I didn't feel like led me to any I wanted to do. But getting the degree, I learned. I think for me one of the best things I learned was how to be more of an active reader. Like I was an actual participant in what I was reading, and I wasn't just passively reading the text. There she goes. She's not so secret. The so like not just stuff and showing up to class and being like, yeah, I read it. I don't know what I just read, but that really became very helpful, and that's something I try and like impress upon students now. My lovely middle is saying this is my third week back, but one of my students I had last year was gave a hug and told me he was glad to see me again. That is the best, isn't it? I love it. I feel like kids always have like a more positive memory of my class than what actually existed in reality. So kids will say like how excited they are to like, or they wish they had my class again. And I'm thinking, really, I'm pretty slept most of the year last year. I remember you being very excited. So, but that's always a great feeling. One chick is asking, welcome back, by the way. You're always here, and I really appreciate that. Have you ever had moments where you got caught up with how students perceive your teaching or cool status? For sure. I think everyone wants to be liked. Even people that say they don't care. I think that's some kind of defense mechanism, so they stop from getting too close to people. But I think everyone wants to be liked, and so when I find out that I'm not liked, that bothers me, and I have to kind of figure that out to remind myself that that's not why I'm there. I don't need to be liked. What I want to be more than anything is respected, and that comes by respecting other people. Even if someone doesn't like me, I can respect that, and that helps. But yeah, it does get caught up. And I think when you're working that out, it's a good model for the kids too, right? Reminding them that it's not all about just like how you appear in something. Let's see. Oh, I'm trying. Really? Cheyenne Moore is asking, best advice or useful idea you learned from your education courses. I think one of the cool things that one of my professors did is Professor Dr. Jorgensen at Rome, who said, had us make up these binders, and we had to go through the internet and like or anywhere we could find them and find for like pre-classes in a certain section in the binder, homework, that one in a section, classroom project, ways to like do tests and quizzes, and we would just collect all these ideas and put them in a box so that when we started, we didn't have to like go out and start anew. We were already learning like what kind of practices might work or might find certain ideas, and that's why I learned that I Googled any lesson that I was looking for. So if I was looking for a lesson on the Odyssey and I put great lesson, so I looked for a great Odyssey lesson or the best Odyssey lesson ever, I found those. I learned how to find those lessons, and that was really helpful to me. Tons of lessons. I mean, you can find tons of stuff online, but not all of it's great. But if someone says, yeah, this is the best thing I ever did, all over it. I'm a part of it. Is that working? Is she on there?
I told you to restart her computer because she couldn't hear anything. So we're waiting for that to do that.
Mr. Reynolds is a human being with feeling. No, he sure is. More than he'd like to have sometimes. Chip Jamerson said, we'll lose privileges when I allow from time to time if I get... on Google Play at the wrong times. Are you referring to something else? Oh wait, it was. That was the second part of that comment. So Chip is saying he's always catching kids sneaking onto Google Play and playing music on Google Chrome, and he doesn't like sneakiness. Am I okay with music? I'm okay with music when I say I'm okay with music. So no one's allowed to listen to anything. If you do stuff like that, I just will have some kind of like, I don't know, weird way to handle it. Like maybe I draw on your desk, or I will draw on your hand with a marker, or I'll shoot you with the water, or I don't know, something weird. And then that kind of crushes it in the moment. But music while you are doing certain things is fine, right? Like, so if we're like copying down notes, or if kids are working together in a small group to like just answer questions, or, you know, I think music can be all right in certain moments, but that's a measure that the teacher wants to figure out. And I think it depends on the class. Some classes, I'd never let them listen to music because I just don't think they can handle it, or I think it would be too distracting for them or for the other students in the class. And I do things when kids listen to music like there's no one's allowed to share headphones. That's weird. And it creates a lot of friction. Like if you skip someone's favorite song and then now they don't have it. Is she still having a hard time?
Yeah, she said still no sound. Crazy.
Weird question. Is her computer muted? Just ask her to turn the volume up. I mean, it could be a weird thing. So overall, though, I'm not against music. What did that other one say?
She said a great comment. Cece Moffat.
Alika Sled said, "I survived my first day of my first year of teaching." Alika. I'm gonna pretend I'm saying your name right. It's very possible that I'm not, because I'm terrible with names. However, forever. I think that tonight you should do like a recording of yourself, and that you never have to look at it again if you don't like seeing yourself recorded. Just saying like, this was my first. This is how it went down. These are the things that I remember. These are the things that happened that were good. These are the things that happened that were a struggle. And then put that away for like 10 years. And then on your 10th year of teaching, take that out and look at it again, and it will blow your mind. I had brown hair when I started teaching, and now I'm like, you know, anything but. Well, actually, wrong side. There we go. But that could be really, really fun way for you to like note the moment. So that is awesome. Van Kindergarten is saying, how do kids respond to the weird reactions like that, putting marker on their hands? I've never had a kid ever get mad, right? So I think I shied away from doing like weird stuff like that early on, because I thought, man, if somebody right on someone's hand, like I might get punched. But I've never had that happen, I think because of the delivery. And I'll tell kids, like, if I see you playing music, I will come around and I will write on your hand. And usually I use like an expo marker that comes right off. Like all you have to do is put water on it. Like sometimes just like a tissue will take it off. So that kind of stuff I've never had backfire from that. And I think it's because of the way that I present it. It's never like, do it and I'm going to write on your hand. And then like, I'm not trying to be tough about it, because me being pissed off is going to equal kids being pissed off. But if I go over with a smile and I go, man, I told you this was going to happen. Or if I sneak up on you and do it real quick and then I'm laughing at you, nobody ever gets mad. And you know the kid that you do it to also, right? So if I do have a very angry child or someone I know that's going through something difficult, I'm never going to do it to them. I'm going to do it to the kid that I know I can get away with it with, but that everyone will go, he's really going to do that. He will really write on you if you do it. And so that kind of puts everybody else into the place that I need them to be in. So, yeah, does everyone... Is everyone able to hear this? I mean, this is 20 minutes in. I
Never
will keep
happened.
apologizing. This has never ever happened before.
And the practice went so well. Like,
it's like last year, come back everything. Give me a home as well. I don't know what to do. I want to have her on the show so bad.
I know.
What should I do?
You could quit this one and redo it. But everyone, it seems to be, it's like her computer.
Yeah, it just seems like her is.
I just signed as Amy Marie. Okay, so look under
All
Amy
right.
Marie and try it. Okay.
Okay, Amy, I'm gonna do it now. Oh, snap! Now it's not letting me. All right, I'm gonna make this happen. And if I don't, we'll make something happen. Look, it's disappearing like that. You give me more problems than anything, man.
Lately, it's been okay.
It's been really bad. Kate the Sleepy Teacher said that you now has been like super glitchy and not working and
Oh, there it was.
I know, but it pops up for like a second and then it goes away. Oh. So what's happening right now is, Amy, I'm hitting your name and this little window pops up and it has a thing in it that says guest, and then I hit that little green button and it allows me to guest you. But as soon as I hit it,
another
the
name
window
and see
comes
if
up.
it allows you to do it with somebody else.
As soon as I hit it, it's going
Also,
away.
even giving you the option.
I don't know. Can you ask her phone number on DM and then call her real quick and just talk through it?
I don't know how to do. I don't know technically.
And then, hold on one second. Quick note to my wife. And then, all right. So let's do this. While I'm waiting to work, is there anyone? Want to try this? Let's just say this. Is there anyone on that would like to be a guest and just guest you in, and we can have like quick 3 to 5 minute chat as I'm waiting for this to happen? And if that works out, then I'll do the next one and like as a way to kind of fill time, because this is something I wanted to do anyway because I think it would be awesome to like connect with people.
Oh, but they
so
can't be on YouTube.
so if you're on you now, I can guest you in. So if you are interested in that, just hit me up in the comment section there. And my wife's going to call Amy now, and they're going to try and figure this out. But that could be interesting. I don't know. We're all giving it a shot.
I just tried guessing in.
Just try guesting in.
Do it again.
But it's not giving me the option to guest her in.
I'm gonna call
I see Kate the Sleepy Teacher's here. Kate, we're having a heck of a time this evening. Nothing wants to work tonight. Should refresh.
her. And restart. Hi, Amy.
Kate, you want to be a guest for a moment? I'm looking for your response because this is going nowhere quick tonight. I'm running out. I don't know what to talk about.
Wow.
Hang on one sec. I mean, you're like gonna fix your hair or something like that. Because look, man, I'll be honest. Not everyone's ready to be live.
See, you can try
I
using
asked a
Classroom
question.
again if she's in there. Usually
She
it
did?
doesn't work without the most recent flash. That's so funny. It didn't give you issues yesterday.
Nope, still not giving me the option.
It's your flash. Yeah. Yeah. Because it's not.
Hi, Moosey. Jenny J, you asked a question. What did you? I didn't see it.
Create an account and make sure you have the most recent update for Flash.
What is up with this? This whole thing's being glitchy. It's not letting me look at questions tonight. This is the worst. I'm sorry. This sucks. Matt Monsoon said, I am in college and I will be able to observe middle or high school classes this semester. Do you have any suggestions on what I should pay special attention to observing? Matt, you should pay attention to everything. I think that, and what I mean by that is some teachers are going to be awesome, and figure out why they're awesome. And then figure out what way you could kind of do that as well. Maybe like, so maybe someone might do something and you might think, oh, that kind of aligns with my personality. I want to make a note that I could do that in class also. I think it's just as important to note things that aren't going to work. That goes to your personality. There might be things that your college or your professors might tell you to do, but it does not line up with who you are as a person, and that is worth investigating. Like, you might not want to do that. For example, if you are not particularly like super strict, then you don't have to be super strict. You could be consistent, but that doesn't mean you have to be like strict. And I think strictness is often aligned with being mean. So you could just go about it that way and say, hey, or someone else might have like a really great sense of humor, and that you might be that person also. And so think about like, well, how are they using their humor? In what way are they doing it? Or, you know, something like that. That would work also. All right. Kate. Kate, what up? This isn't letting me guest you in either. What in the world is happening tonight? Nothing is working. Kate, it's not letting me guest you in. Let's see if this works. This is insane.
Whatever he wants. Okay. All right. Let me try this. All right. Thanks.
Wait, that didn't really work.
So it's her flash. You know how we did it the one time and it let us do it, and then it denied us the next, and it said she has to update it. Well, it's her new computer. She's figuring all that out.
Okay.
She's doing it now. I said we can either scrap it.
Kate, it's not letting me guest you in.
Oh my God, this is
either.
ridiculous.
I know. What am I supposed to do?
I don't. Just do it on your own.
All right, I'm going to keep doing this on my own. I don't know if anyone wants to watch this, just Reynolds, but let's try it. If you don't want to watch it, then I'll notice that there's no views. So Carly S. said, hi, teaching grade 10 English. What's your cell phone policy for your classroom? Being encouraged to use more technology, but students often are off task on Snapchat, etc. All right, so I don't allow cell phone use in my class unless it is for a very brief amount of time and I need to see that everyone is on point. And so the way that I would set that up is something like, you're never, ever, ever allowed to have your cell phone on in class unless I tell you to. And the way that I sell that is I say, I need your full attention because I want this to be the best class of the day, every single day. And so if your attention is not on me, then you're going to miss what's happening because I'm putting a lot of work into this and it's going to be awesome. Also, I need your attention because that's what I need because I like when everyone's paying attention and not to Snapchat. That just kind of like makes a joke out of the moment, but the kids get the point. And so when you have your cell phone out, Liz, if I see you on something else, you either lose points or you take the 0, or you might get a warning, but that's it, like for all time. And the next time you don't get to participate in that particular activity, or they might just that class. If a class as a whole can't do it, then I will take that privilege away, and that class won't be able to do those sorts of activities anymore. But I will always tell them about the students that can do those activities. Like, man, it sucks you guys can't do this. This was so good today. Like 5th period did it and like time flew by. It was awesome. It was so fun. So-and-so had this class where they like made this little project on their phone or on their computer and it was hilarious and it was just great. So like, I hope you could do it next time because it's really great, but I see that we're not all in the space to be able to handle that today. And that's cool. Like we can just move on to something else. I thought this would be fun, but it's all right. Right, and sell it like that, and it can go better the next time because I'll preface it and say like, look, you know, like police yourselves. Like if you see your homie is on their phone, and they're doing something they're not supposed to be doing, like just let them know, because it's going to mess it up for everyone here, and I don't want that to happen. So that could work as well. My lovely middle is asking, how do you motivate the unmotivated? One of my students absolutely refuses to turn in work and tells his other teachers he doesn't see the point. So I think that's going to depend on what kind of kid you have, right? And from the beginning, I would say I'm a pretty optimistic person, but I'm just going to say some kids you won't be able to win. So I would go in with mindset that like there are some guys that like, and I say guys because I teach all boys, but that I just can't motivate. But if I can't, I find someone else that can, right? I always tell new teachers, like I don't need to be everyone's hero. I just need every kid to have a hero. So if I'm not that person, I might find out if they really get along with the history teacher, or maybe they're on the football team, I'll talk to the coach, or I'll call home, or like whoever they really connect with, that's who I'm going to connect with. But in my room, I tell kids like, look, all I care about is you doing well and succeeding. That's the bottom line. That's the end goal. I have like this job sucks if it doesn't deal with students, right? So I want that for you. And so then I would kind of like reverse the situation and say, well, why don't you want to do work? Like, what's your life look like after high school? Do you want to go to high school? Do you want to drop out? Do you want a particular job? And if you want to have a particular job, then will you need this work to do that? Will you need to be able to listen to a boss and learn how to play the game? And sometimes selling it to kids in a little bit of a different way helps. I know that sometimes I'll tell kids like, high school is a game. I just had a conversation with my friend Brenda about this about an hour or so ago. But high school is, for a lot of kids, a game. You're not going to, you don't win if you don't play the game. If you just sit there like a lump, then you can't win the game. And so the game is do the work, learn the stuff, take the test, get the grade, pass. And as teachers, of course, we know there's more to it than that. It's not just a game. But sometimes that switch for a kid helps them to realize, like, okay, like if I want to go to a good college, you have to do the work. And if you don't do the work, then you can't win. And I think that can really help. And I think being relentless, like telling kids, like, I'm so pumped that you're here today. I love that you're in my class. I know that you hate being here, but I love you being here. And that kind of relentlessness every single day is something that can really help you out. We'll try that again. Go ahead. All right, we're going to try this one more time. Let's see if it works. Maybe. Is it working? Can you see me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. It's working all right then?
Yeah, sorry.
All right. 33 minutes. No, listen, it's really not a concern at all. It is stressful, but but this, I don't, going live is like, I don't know. It's just, it's a different.
Considering we practiced it yesterday, I don't know.
Well, and the funny thing is that it worked flawlessly yesterday, that there were no hiccups or anything. In the week previous, it was literally 2 hours of trying to get it set up, and it was a total nightmare. Even during the show, it was really glitchy and a mess. So I don't know. Maybe that's something I have to investigate on my end to see what's going on. But listen, thanks so much for sticking in there. I really, really appreciate you doing that. And
oh my gosh, absolutely.
I'm excited to have you here. So let's jump into this, and I'd love to have you just kind of like introduce yourself. Who are you? Where do you teach? Or like, what do you teach? That kind of thing.
So I am 12 years into this second career, actually. I teach third grade, so my first career was being a stay-at-home mom, and then went back to school when my girls went to school. So I, volunteered in the classroom and thought I could do this. And so I went back to school. They got to see me graduate. They were in fifth grade when they saw me graduate, which was pretty special. And And then I went right into teaching special ed. And I taught special ed. I taught learning support for 8 years and absolutely loved it. The only reason actually that I switched from special ed to regular ed was because the trend in education obviously is to have the kids stay in the classroom. And I wanted to be with my kids. I wanted to be with them where they were going to learn the most. And so an opportunity presented itself, and I went from fourth grade special ed to third grade regular ed. And I've been in, this will be my fourth year in regular ed. So yeah, and I love it.
Are you in an inclusion class now then, or is it just?
So yeah, when I started in our district, it was complete pullout. So the entire language arts period, if a child had an IEP for language arts, it was reading, writing, the whole bit, the entire language arts period, which was like 2 hours a day, the kids would come to my classroom. Same thing for math. If they had an IEP for math, then they'd come to my classroom for math. And I really loved it because they were my kids, and I welcomed them in my classroom. We were a team in my classroom when they were there with me. But over the last, well, so then the director of special ed in our district has since retired. And that model, as much as I actually loved it when I was teaching it, that model is really, kind of something of the past. So the new director came in, and it's a transition for sure. It's not something that went overnight, and suddenly these kids who were pulled out for 2 hours are now, back in the classroom and without any support. And obviously it's an individual education plan. So depending on the child and the child's needs, we decide whether or not the child's going to be pulled out for the entire time, or for part of the time, or to stay in the room the entire time in the regular ed room. And so, I guess it depends on the kid and on the teachers. So we have a big school. Our third grade has 9 regular ed teachers and 1 learning support teacher. And because it's so large, she has to support, a wide, her caseload is still the same, but a wide variety of classrooms. So what we've done is we've cut the group, the team into 2, so that only 5 of the classrooms that she really has to focus on, all of the learning support students are going to be in those 5. And my class is one of the 5. So,
Okay.
Yeah, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. That sounds like a huge school, which is really interesting to me because we have about 500 students in my whole high school. So it's a really, really small.
We have I think we just topped over 800 in second, third, fourth, fifth, 4 grade levels.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's wild.
That's our
So let me ask you this. So our topic that we talked about was this idea of building community in the classroom. And my first question is, 1, why is that important to you? And 2, how do you go about doing that, like from jump, like right from the beginning here?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? Because that kind of was glitchy.
Sure. So the brief version is, why do you think classroom community is important, and how do you introduce that into your classroom in the beginning of the year?
So I think you said, why is it important to me? I'm not sure if that's what you said. So actually, it's because I was a special ed teacher. I think that's why it is something that's so important to me, because I saw kids who were disenfranchised by the system. So in other words, they have a homeroom, they're assigned to a homeroom, and they're in that room. And if a child has an IEP for language arts and for math, those are the 2 biggest chunks of the day. The science and social studies in our school generally takes place during the same time. So in other words, Monday, Wednesday, Friday might be science, Tuesday, Thursday might be social studies during that same block, 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Then they have special, then they have lunch and recess together. But the bulk of their learning time is taking place out of their homeroom. And so I saw these kids, and like I said, when they came to my room, I felt like that was my job, was to make sure that they felt included, because I saw, and especially with fourth graders, they're old enough to recognize when they're being excluded. And it's not that there's anybody is purposefully excluding them. It's just
Yeah.
a reality of their education. They needed the extra support. And so that's really where it all started from for me, was to make sure that these kids felt like they were part of something, that they were part of a community, a classroom community. And I've just, sort of taken that with me into the regular ed classroom,
Yeah.
because, again, those kids are still with me. And I feel like regardless of what any kid's needs are, they need to feel like they're part of something. And I guess I have a little bit of a soft spot for the kids who struggle, because I taught them for 8 years and saw that it's not just so simple as saying, oh, they need it repeated. I mean, they need so many different things, and I wanted to make sure that I gave that to them. And so I feel like that helps me as a regular ed teacher to know, understand that background. Especially with kids, like I remember, having some kids who socially are strong. They have good social networks, good friends, a group of friends, maybe into sports, and a reading disability, when they come to class, makes them feel different. And so, I regardless of what their needs are, I want to make sure that they feel like they're a part of something.
Yeah.
And I also feel like it's not something, classroom community, I think is very common. I think teachers understand the importance of it. I think what I try to stress is that it doesn't just happen the first 2 weeks of school. You don't just do the getting to know you activities and the icebreakers, and then you move on and you teach. And I think what's important too is that a lot of teachers may not realize that they're doing it all year long when they do things like class meeting. That's something that absolutely builds classroom community, but it's something that does need to continue the entire year, not just at the beginning of the year when everybody's getting to know everybody.
Yeah. It's, for me, it was, remember high school. I went to a high school where I didn't know anyone. That first day at lunch, walking out with my tray at lunchtime and thinking, I have nowhere to sit. Like, I don't know anyone that I could sit with. And so I looked for the biggest, toughest looking table in the lunchroom, and that's where I went and sat. Because I thought, if I can sit, like, no one's going to mess with me because I'm sitting with, guys that look like yours. And so that's kind of like how I pulled it off. And then when I became a high school teacher, that always stayed with me. And I thought, well, I'm going to create a space during lunch that anyone can show up and eat lunch in my room with me. And they don't have to talk to me. They don't have to hang out. We don't have to have a conversation. You can if you want, but if you're just lay low and have a safe space to play on your phone or listen to music or put your head down or do your homework, whatever, that space exists. It became a before school space and then an after school space. And then during the day, sometimes I'll get stragglers that come in that are like, I can't do this today and this really awful thing's going on, but I need to be in school. And so I'll text and say, I don't know what you're doing in class. And, and that's very rare also, but it's if someone I had students last year who their parents were going through something very difficult and it was for him to be in school every day. So every once in a while, yeah, man, you can take a period and just be in here. But I think creating that safe space is huge. And it's so important because the students come to school with so much and because kids can be so mean that you need to have one of those places in your school. And I mean, luckily your students have you all day, right? Your kids don't switch
Right.
out
Yes.
right during your
Yep.
day. So an even greater incentive. I mean, I see my guys for 50 minutes for my period, and then if they choose to come in during lunch, that's usually like at least 30 kids in with me eating. Sometimes I have to stop letting kids in, but I pick and choose. I pick and choose the ones I'm like, you really need, and this guy just wants to come in here because there's 30 dudes to hang out with, and he wants to and he likes it because he wants to talk about Game of Thrones or something like that with me. But so what's something that you would tell someone who is just starting out teaching or that has never really thought about creating like a classroom, like building relationships? What advice would you give them starting out, do you think?
I think, the 8 years that the 8 years that I taught special ed, I think were invaluable, gave me an invaluable experience. And it's kind of hard to just sum that all up and say, this is what you need to know. But it is something, though, that I do stress is because you mentioned the word safe, for kids to feel safe. And that can mean something different, depending on the population that you're teaching and even within that population, each individual kid. But from my perspective, from my background of teaching special ed, what I think of is the safety that they feel socially, and it's different. Fourth graders are way different than high schoolers, but in the end, we're all human beings and we want to belong. That's without a doubt a need that we all feel. And so one of the things what I recognized is that if a kid is struggling academically, he's not going to take the same academic risks that a kid who, the work is coming much easier to. Yeah. And what happens when he doesn't take those risks is that his own education, he's losing out on his own education by not, and it could be something as simple as raising his hand to answer a question or, volunteering to lead his group or, those kids tend to shrink back. And although, listening is certainly one way of learning, it's not the only way. And I feel like without feeling comfortable enough and safe enough to take the academic risk, that's where these kids lose out. And that's the thing that I stress to any new teacher is to recognize. I mean, let's face it, I was in my 30s when I started teaching. And I had kids who were in elementary school. But because my own kids didn't struggle, I didn't know the vast, differences that kids had when they came into the classroom. I mean, sure. I just sort of assumed that all kindergartners knew their letters and their numbers and were, beginning to learn sight words and all of that because my girls came in with that understanding. And so when I brought it up in class one day, and I remember this, and my teacher was, in college, and he was like, "You have no idea. You have no clue." And I didn't. And that's the thing. Like without that experience, it's really hard to comprehend the vast differences that some of these kids have. And with kids with learning differences, it's hard to articulate because it's so different for everybody. I can kind of lump two groups, that for reading difficulties, the kids who have comprehension difficulties and the kids who have decoding difficulties. But it's not even that simple. It can be so much more complex than that. So that's where my, the heart of that's where the unique classroom came from, actually. When I was teaching learning support, I was seeking out other learning support teachers like me who were, just to collaborate, just to talk. And I didn't find anything. And so I started the unique classroom, started blogging with the intent of reaching out to others who might be in the same boat as me because, to teach that population of kids is so unique. And, and so that's really where my philosophy has come from. to teach them where they are versus, to go in with this idea that they're all going to do this activity or this task.
Yeah.
And they're all going to succeed because I'm a really good teacher. Well, sometimes it has nothing to do with me. Sometimes, and when I go into a classroom, there are kids that are going to learn despite anything that I do when I get up there. They're going to come in and they're going to absorb it all and they're going to learn. But it's those kids that come in with the guard up, with that wall that you have to there's no reason for them to let you in unless you show them that you care. And it's not as easy as just saying, hey, I care about you. There's so many things that have to happen throughout the school year for them to let that guard down.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And it's so much more work than I think you ever anticipate it being, right? So like you have, and which is why I'm always kind of like pushing this idea of getting to know your students also, because once you know someone, then like the teaching part becomes much easier. That if I know who you are and where you come from and what your situation is and why maybe like where some of this anger is coming from or this I don't care attitude is coming from, like and I think that can happen at all schools too, right? So like for people that don't know that are watching, like I teach in like, I hate the term inner city, but I teach like in inner city Philadelphia, and a lot of my students come with a certain amount of baggage. But I find that even the kids that come from like seemingly wonderful homes that have both parents there and they always have food to eat and they have like a lot of those needs are met, there can still be some other underlying stuff going on. And I don't think that means that you need to counsel every student or find out like all the dirt that's going on in their lives. But what you can do is just be that person that's consistently there every day, year after year, and caring about those kids. And sometimes that stuff doesn't even get handled in the year that you have them, which is why I continuously keep up with all my students year after year. And sometimes years later, I mean, we had a student that came over last night that I taught 10 or 11 years ago that called me on her way home from work and was like, can you guys, meaning my wife and I, like, are you guys around? I had a tough day at work. I'm going to come talk about it. And then she came over and we like had drinks at my dining room table and hung out and had dinner together. And it was really great. But I think, and not that you need to do that. Like I couldn't possibly do that I have like thousands of children at my house at any given time. But there are some, and they're generally the kids that I felt like really, really needed it. And those are the ones that I make sure that I'm keeping up with because it's so important.
And even like you said, how each child, what they need is different. Yeah. And so I'm thinking of a student that I had just this past year who his whole history from birth is, complicated. And his parents were open about it. They shared with me that he was adopted and the circumstances under which he was adopted. And so, it was good for me to have that background, to meet them, to understand my student better. And so I think the other thing is that people think that, classroom community is all about having fun and opening up with your feelings and, doing those kinds of things, although absolutely that has a place. But my husband just peeked in. But the student that I had last year, he needed consistency, and people, I don't think people realize that structure can be something that kids seek out, and that makes them feel safe. So having procedures in place and having a schedule and not changing it on a whim, or at least giving kids, certain kids a heads up beforehand. And when I say kids with special needs, I don't even mean the kids on the spectrum. I mean, these are kids who like you said, might not have that support at home or that structure at home, and they seek out that structure. And sometimes their behavior at school looks like it's, just bad behavior, but what they're doing is seeking out you to give them the boundary. And so this student that I had he needed boundaries, and he needed me to really make those boundaries clear for him, because otherwise he didn't know what to do with himself. He kind of, was at a loss. And, and it was as simple as, he would take a water bottle and he would crunch it. It would be empty and he'd crunch it. And I'd be trying to ignore it. And it would be too much. Everybody's now looking at this student crunching his water bottle. Yeah. And so I just said to him, you have a choice. You can either put the water bottle in your backpack or you can hand it to me. And I knew that he didn't want to hand it to me because that's giving up power. I needed him to have some power. And that is part of classroom community, is, allowing kids to feel some control of their environment. And, so 9 times out of 10, he's putting it in his backpack, or, whatever the other option was on the counter. Flexible seating is huge right now. It's a huge trend in elementary schools.
Yeah.
And I think that plays into the community. In my classroom, I don't have sign-up sheets and I don't take control of the flexible seating options. 3rd grade, I feel like, is 1st and 2nd grade I can't speak to because they're younger. But by 3rd grade, they come into my room and they look at me like, you're going to let me choose where I sit? And I'm like, yeah, as long as we go over the rules ahead of time and we talk about it, as long as you follow, the rules for the flexible seating, you can make that choice, and I give them I make it known that I trust them, and that in turn hopefully allows them to trust me.
Yeah. I think that's huge. I think even in terms of, I'm thinking of the student you were talking about in the bottle, where like another way that I'll handle something like that is to say, after class, I'll go speak with them and say, like, look, I get it. Like, I get what we're really doing here, what's behind this. My dog wants to bark for no apparent reason. And here goes my wife dragging him in. This is our house. It's my house. So students like that will just call it out and say, like, I get what we're doing. And I want more than anything to give you attention, but I just don't want to give you attention because you're like, because of that. Like, let's just, like, I'd rather us decide a better way to kind of do that. Or I've had students before where, like, and I've talked about this show before, but I'll give them a detention, and their detention is, you have to eat lunch with me for a week now, right? And every day we eat lunch, and then 9 times out of 10, or in the past, my wife has, like, made lunch for them, and she writes their name on the bag and stuff like that, and I bring that in, and that always catches kids off guard. And I'll call home and tell their mom, like, look, this is what happened. They're going to eat lunch with me every day this week, and it's so great. Like, every single time I've ever done it, it has never failed, because now we're going to sit together. I'm just going to ask you about 9,000 questions about yourself, and we're going to find some point on which we connect. There's going to be some commonality in our lives, and that will bring us closer together. And then most of the time after that week, I rarely have problems with those kids again, or it becomes something that we can talk about, or that we've created a bond so we can move on from that. And it doesn't have to be like little petty kind of nonsense that you're doing in class because you just want the attention or because you want to show off. And it's like, no, like, we're not friends now, but, like, there's an understanding, or we've created something, and that goes a really, really long way. In my experience, are those little connections with students. And it's like, and at the end of the day, it's like when your detention is to eat lunch with a teacher and he's, like, providing your lunch every day, like, it's not so bad. A lot of my boys don't eat, or they eat, like, the worst crap. They'll eat, like, chips and blue soda for lunch. And I'm like, that's not really a lunch. Like, a peanut butter and jelly would be a better option at this point. That would be. Someone is asking, Queen de la Classroom is asking, do you think that choice boards are helpful? Do you have those in your school?
what was that? The choice
Do you
board?
think choice boards? Yeah.
So I used to, and I think that there's some value in that. Again, giving kids a choice throughout the day. But I, I, there was one thing about basically what happens is I do a what elementary, if you've heard of it, Daily Five, which
Yeah.
is also big in elementary. So it just creates. So you're supposed to create centers while you're working with a small group. Other kids have to be independent doing something. And so and I've done contracts where they have to show me what they've done, and I've done a poster board, and I've done it on the smart board. I've tried everything, and I basically said the most important time in that block, because we now only get about half an hour to 45 minutes of guided reading a day, which is crazy, but that's all we're allowed. So during that time, for the 20 minutes or so that you're with me, that's the most important time. I basically said the only other thing that I'm expecting you to do when you're not with me is to read a book that you have chosen. And again, third grade, this is not first grade where they can't sustain that 20 minutes of reading. And my kids are up to chapter books, so they're not going through a ton of books in that 20 minutes. So there is that choice there. It doesn't, because we use journeys in our school, and so there's a workbook to go with it. And so if they need to finish a couple of pages, it's totally open. So I have up on my display, I have a mustard list, a ketchup list, and a pickle list. The mustard would be those workbook pages that are assigned for that reading, for that story. The ketchup list obviously is catching up to whatever they missed. And then the pickle list is something that I got from Teaching Madness. I found her on Instagram, and she came up with a list of things that kids can explore on their own. So we have Chromebooks in our classroom, and so they have the ability to, and I give them safe search engines to use on my website. And so they have the ability to search, and I give them ideas. I don't say you have to do this. I say, these are a bunch of topics, and these are all the things you could do with that topic. And so it's really open-ended, because I feel like choice is so important.
Yeah.
But the key there is that I don't follow up with it. In other words, it's not a mandate. It's not something that they get a grade for, or they come back and I have to mark it in any way, because I want it to be something that they want to do. And if they choose not to do that, fine. If they are up to date with their workbook and they just want to read, I'm all for that too.
Yeah. That's awesome. So it's the tough thing about that idea in high school is that I have so little time and so much stuff I need to get through every day that it's like choice comes more into play when there's a project to do, or like the book that you want to read. So everyone is assigned an independent reading book, and so they get to pick any book that they want, and if I have it, I'll order anything for them. But so those are the ways that there's more choice. But in terms of class, it's so quick that any time that I've tried to do in the past, like different kids doing different stuff, and I've also been in rooms that were like slightly larger than a coat closet. And so like I had a room one year where I only had 5 seats deep, and I could collect all of my papers on a yardstick that I'd made a giant hand on the end of. So it was like hand on a stick, because my room was so small. It looked like I was doing collection at a Catholic church or something like that. And it becomes really difficult when your rooms are so confined and you can't kind of move around like that. Monique Hernandez is asking, I have the LL class this year, and I'm struggling with students learning how to read. Any ideas? I teach 3rd grade. So what would you say to that? I mean, that sounds like it would be right up your alley. grade-wise anyway?
So I think she said English language learners. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. We just our ELL teacher just retired. She was phenomenal. So we're at a loss this year without her. Um, sh I, the way our district works is we don't have a large ELL population. So I've only had a few kids in my class each year who are English language learners. And it really depends. If you have an ELL teacher, that's my first go-to. That is my person who I'm gonna, check in with and talk with because, and again, I can only speak in my situation. Our former ELL teacher was such an advocate that she was visiting those families at their homes and
Wow.
making sure that they were signing up for whatever services they needed to support their family. She was just she knew her families, wasn't just the kids but the families inside and out. And so for me to go to her was an easy answer because I could say to her, what do I need, what can I do to help my student. And and so she was good. So we have a new teacher this year, and I haven't met her yet. I'm sure she's phenomenal. But just knowing what we had with our former ELL teacher, that's my advice is to go to that person, to ask them, because they usually, in a situation like that, it's something that I would hope that they know the families well enough to be able to give that advice. But I would say that, in my situations now, the few kids that I've had, generally by third grade, they have language. It isn't that they're coming into my room not speaking English. So I'm not sure how severe, the student we're talking about here, how new they are to the language. But the other sort of aspect to this is that, and what was great about our ELL teacher was that she recognized that a lot of times kids who come in with some kind of, with English being a second language, they can get confused sometimes with kids with learning or reading disabilities. And so she was right there to make sure that wasn't happening, because the last thing you want is for somebody to get misidentified, and not get the services that they need. So, that was when I was in special ed. Now that I'm in regular ed, in the past few years, the kids that I've had haven't been that severe. The one that had more difficulty 3 years ago, I looked at him purely as a reader, as an English language reader, and targeted the needs just as I would any of the other kids that I had. But again, he wasn't new. He wasn't so new to English. He was just as a second language.
I think a really good point that you brought up there, also, that I want to just kind of reemphasize, is this idea where we're not just trying to go it alone all the time. And I think a lot of teachers the idea of like reaching out for help equals weakness. And it's because they're not putting their focus on the student. And I think if you make everything about the kid, then it has nothing to do with the fact, you're not showing that you don't know how to teach, but there just might be someone who's better suited for that particular student, or they might have a skill that you don't possess, or a way of communicating what needs to be learned in a different way for that kid. And that can mean everything. And I think once we get into the practice of asking for help or looking out for kids in any way that we can, it really suits them. I used to teach in Camden, New Jersey, and I had about half of my students were Spanish speaking. So most kids were speaking Spanish at home, and I would occasionally get kids that just showed up from the Dominican Republic like last week, and they knew no English at all, and now they're in
Wow.
ninth grade literature with me, and it was like meeting kids where they are. So like we talk about differentiating instruction and education, but like really differentiating instruction. So I would get kids like if we were reading the Odyssey, I would try and get kids like the Odyssey graphic novel or something like that. Or if someone on a very low reading level, getting them something that was along the same lines that we were, but like being really honest with it, saying, look, this is where we are right now. I'm going to meet you right there, and we're going to be 100% like clear about like this is the situation. We're not going to pretend that it's better than what it is, but what I'm going to do is work with you so hard to try and really bring you up and try and get you closer to where you could be. And I sometimes I think that sort of honesty is missed on kids, where we try to be, we're so nervous that the kids are going to be so fragile and break if we tell them the truth, or if we're like really clear about what the situation is, where instead of teaching them to like own it and then take it from there and say like, look, we're going to get all the help. I'm going to do every single thing that I can. And that sounds so great that the ELL teacher would like even go to someone's house, because I think just that act is showing kids like I'm done. Like I'm technically I'm finished for the day, but I'm willing to show up at your house on my time and do this. I think that creates that space of, again, we talked about earlier, is showing kids like through your actions what you're willing to do for them, a safe place to help them to learn, and that is everything. That question went away, so I'll do this one first.
And I think as parents too, though, you know, as parents, you know, that's a lesson that we learn going through, you know, just parenting, is that we don't have all the answers.
Yeah.
And sometimes we have to say, I'll get back to you on that, you know, or if a situation comes up. I remember a situation with my own daughters that I literally was thinking, where's the manual? Because I have no idea what the right answer is, you know, and I hope that I did the right thing. And in the end, you know, it's a small thing now. At the time, for me, it felt like a huge thing. Yeah. And if I had somebody to go to, I would have reached out to that lifeline. And so at school, I think that because we do have those lifelines, and again, it depends on the school that we work at. It depends on the level that we work at. I mean, in your situation, I think you're expected to take on a lot more than I am, because I do have the ELL teacher to come and she pulls out. She also pushes in, and you know, so a good example is my third grade team. When we talk, we're always honest with each other about, you know, what I feel strong at and what I feel I'm actually most weak at. And so we have one teacher who is, she is probably one of the smartest people I know, and teaches science, not only thoroughly and accurately, but with such enthusiasm that the kids cannot wait till the next science lesson begins. And all of us are signing up and saying, when can my class come to your class? And she'll do that for us and allow us to, you know, not listen in, but be a part of that lesson. And, you know, I'm all for finding somebody else who can help me, you know, rise and be better if I can.
Yeah, it's everything once you get it over. And I think as soon as you start teaching, you need to start practicing and exercising that muscle, because the further you go, I think the harder it's going to get if you don't start doing that like from day one. Alika Sled is asking, does anyone have experience in PL, in personalized learning? This is my school's first year incorporating PL. I've never heard of this before. Do you know about this? Personalized
learning? I mean, the only thing I'm thinking is if it's something like an IEP only for regular ed kids, but I can't speak to it because I'm not familiar with it.
So I would say, Alika, if you have like a little bit more information, you could like put that in the question. We might be able to like speak to that, because a lot of times in education, I feel like there's, you know, one thing, but we call it like 6 different names. We just like to rewrap, you know, the same sort of PD every year and say, no, it's something new. It's not the same thing. Alika led is, she's also asking another question, is on how to include our self-contained friend in the gen ed population. I mean, you talked about this a little bit, but when you taught that inclusion class, or when you had like the pull class, right? Was there ever any like work between you and the regular ed class, or were there things that you did together on occasion? And if so, what did that look like? And if not, what would you
Yeah.
do?
So when I first started, it was completely pull out, and I was exclusive from the regular ed classrooms. And and if I can even admit this, because it was 12 years ago, my curriculum was different, and some for right reasons. I mean, we used the Wilson Reading Program, which is you have to be certified. I had to go through a year program and become certified. And that's for kids with decoding difficulties and weaknesses. And it's a great program and it works. But
Yeah. My wife is freaking out now that you're talking about this program. She's like, she loves it, and
yeah,
my wife is like,
it's
is
near and
is
dear to my heart. I
yes,
love it because it works. So we use that, but we also, we're using other programs as well. And I wasn't happy with that. So when the opportunity came with the other programs that we had, when the opportunity came to adopt some other programs or to do other things, I was talking to another regular ed teacher, and he and I had very similar philosophies and felt that these kids should be in the regular ed room. And this was, I was only probably 3 years into my career at this point. But so excited that a veteran teacher saw the same thing that I did. So I did. I pushed in, and we did a co-teaching model without any training, and with very little planning, common planning time. And so it had its struggles. I don't recommend that you do that because as much as philosophically we felt the same, there was a lot of hurdles that we didn't anticipate, a lot of obstacles that we came across, that because our philosophies might have been the same, but our teaching styles were different, and we didn't realize that until we were then in the same classroom. So now that time has passed, we're going back into that. We're not back, but sort of moving towards that model of in full inclusion, or at least responsible inclusion.
yeah.
We're talking about co-teaching, but none of our teachers have been trained, and we all feel that it's imperative to have some training. Just because I'm a special ed teacher by training doesn't make me a good co-teacher. And so I think the assumption is that that's the way it would be, but I think a lot has to go into a lot of planning has to go into that in order for that to be successful.
Yeah.
So I've had experience with it, but
yeah, I think that's so important. Like, I really feel like even to be in that co-teaching, I see that someone on the side is saying that co-teaching has to work for both teachers. That's Miss Moosey is saying this. So in my school, there has been a class for the 9th and 10th grade that has been a co-taught class for years, and very seldom has it worked because either someone had there, or the two teachers like didn't gel, and it was very hard to find like a relationship that worked. And so last year I was given this class, right? I didn't ask for this class. I was given this class 2 years ago, I think, and I've been through five co-teachers that have either been fired, left. I'm not going to talk about that. And so, and like, or something has happened and they're no longer there. And then last year I had my friend Bethany back from Hawaii, because we had this opening, and so I sent her an email and I said, like, look, you should come back. You should come back from Hawaii to Philadelphia, and you should teach this class with me. And she did, and came back, and it was like night and day. It was so exciting to go in every day and know that like the person you're teaching with is like you in the right ways and different than you in the right ways, so that we were kind of like filling the gap of the other one. And we've been planning all summer for all, keep saying this is going to be the greatest year ever. And we've like created a new program and rewritten the curriculum and have come up with new lessons. And so I think when you are on the same page as someone else, it's just, I mean, it's the difference between like wanting to show up to work and not wanting to show up, really. I mean,
Yeah.
it's and the kids can only benefit from that
Yes.
union in that way. And it's the best.
I mean,
Like,
even in our situation, because it didn't, like I said, his teaching style and mine were different. I think I grew as a teacher. I know I did, just being in his classroom. And I think that without a doubt, even though I don't look at it necessarily as a huge success for me, I do feel like the kids benefited anyway, because now we had, two teachers there who were looking at it from, I'll tell you what, being in the regular ed classroom can be overwhelming, because when I was in special ed, I had an instructional aide with me all the time. So I always had that extra set of eyes and
yeah,
another person to, if I wasn't being clear with my students, she'd pipe up and say, "Oh, Miss, did you mean, and oh yeah, that's what I meant." And I didn't realize I wasn't getting my point across, or she was just pointing out that maybe somebody might not have understood what I was trying to say. And so I think at the very least, I wasn't a co-teacher in that situation more than I was, just a support for my students.
yeah,
So I think that they benefited for that from that situation.
yeah, absolutely. So do you have time for, I mean, we're at an hour and 21 minutes, and that a lot of that is because the mishap in the beginning, but do you have time for one more question? Because I don't want to
Yeah,
keep
yeah,
you
yeah.
super late. I know it's
I
like
feel
back
like
to
we've
school
kind of
velocity
gone off the
now.
topic, but it's, special ed. I sort of started out talking about special ed, and I think that's kind of where my focus has been here, and I hope that's
Yeah.
okay.
No.
Because
So yeah, absolutely. Like I'm here. What I'm trying to do, like even with this channel, and like this is good to just reiterate to everyone, is like this really gives a chance to give real, like answer questions in real time and like really help people where they're at right now. So I'll go all over the place
okay.
just if that's where folks need it. But Monique Hernandez is saying, she said, thank you. And she said, I have one more question. I work at a STEM school. Do you have any cool STEM projects that you've loved? What's your experience with, do you get to do that sort of stuff at your school, or what's that look like?
So we actually this year coming up, we have our middle school has had a maker space, which I know the two are not necessarily the same thing, but we've had a maker space in our middle school for a couple of years. It's now trickled down. We, I think, got a grant, so we have a lot of materials, a lot of things that they purchased right at the end of the school year last year. And we went in, it's now where our computer lab in our library used to be. They took all those computers out, and now that's going to be a makerspace with the focus on STEM. So, and it's funny though, because I haven't, because I haven't had any formal training in STEM, I was not really sure what I was doing. I didn't want to I didn't really know what to do. And I've purchased things, lesson plans and that kind of thing, sort of dabbled in it. But I just was at a workshop recently at Arcadia University, and it was the, I signed up for it because it was the best. It said, I can't remember the formal name for it, but it was about designing paper airplanes. And I thought, I do a paper airplane challenge every year, not
Yeah.
realizing that I was doing STEM. That is STEM. You're giving them a challenge. And I was giving them, the materials. And I gave them opportunities to test out their planes, and when that didn't work, they could modify it in some way and come back and try it again. And I didn't realize what I was doing with STEM. So STEM is actually a lot simpler than I thought in my head. So we don't have any kind of formal program for STEM in our building, but I think that's kind of moving towards that. So
Yes.
so I'm looking forward to that for sure because I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's so the way our school is organized, we have pretty much complete autonomy in our classrooms. We can decide to do whatever we want. I read whatever books I want every year. My lessons look however I want them to from week to week or day to day or year to year. But the way that we've laid it out is that like my class doesn't have as much of that because a lot of what I need from my boys is for them to read for sustained periods of time every single day. And so that takes up 20, 30 minutes in a class, and it leaves very little time for other things to happen. But the science classes and the math, so take 2 math classes in 9th grade a day and then take a science class also. So that learning is happening in there. But I just think it makes me a little jealous sometimes when it's kind of stuff going on because I'm like, that I would love. But, at this point, I'm not going back to school for science because
No.
for that. But yeah, so Amy, I'm really sorry that this got messed up in the beginning, but I'm really, really glad that you were on. I really appreciate it.
Me too.
Especially because your answers are so like and maybe you know this about yourself, maybe you don't, but you're just giving stuff that I feel like someone could walk into school tomorrow and say, okay, yeah, I heard last night on the show, and like this is exactly what I'm going to do now. This is how I'm gonna like change my class a little bit, or I'm gonna pivot how I was doing something else in class. So I really appreciate that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate those kind words because sometimes I feel like I'm saying something that everybody already knows anyway, but it's just something that means a lot to me. So I'll just keep saying it.
I'll tell you, and I think this is important to note, like having been doing YouTube, everyone I noticed feels like their life is like everyone already knows this, like kind of how you said, or like this is totally normal, but it's really not. Like when I was emailing with someone yesterday who teaches in Israel and found me on YouTube, and it's like the lives are so different. Even though we have the same job, like they're teaching 9th grade English in Israel, but it's couldn't be any more different. It is, and that just becomes wildly interesting. And when all these first year teachers keep contacting me and they're like, classroom management, like, how do you do it? And I'm like, all right, let's take a step back. I might actually have something to offer. And so I'm glad to be able to do it. So, and I'm glad that you came on and did the same thing. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, this was a lot of fun, and you obviously make me feel much more comfortable than I ever could. So thank you.
That's what I'm here for. So thanks for being on again.
And thank your wife. I have to thank her too. She was a big part in this.
I will. There she is. All right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. Guys, you can find Amy at the Unique Classroom on Twitter, on TPT, on Instagram, on her blog, and I'll have all that linked in the description box below after this video posts on YouTube. And on Thursday, I also from Instagram, Miss Urban Educator. She's going to be coming on, and we're going to be having a conversation about, I'm not sure what yet. Maybe a surprise. It'll be about. So, hey, as always, I'm really sorry that the beginning of this sucked. I really, really appreciate you hanging in there and that working out eventually. So, thanks, guys. I appreciate it. We'll see you on Thursday. Peace.